So when a young Catholic woman, MBA in hand, starts a career in a global wealth management, she can expect great things to happen. Working in high finance with Merrill Lynch, Jennifer Baugh was ready to work the trail to prosperity when she received this moment of grace, which changed the course of her life. As she experienced this grace and began evangelizing and energizing young Catholic professionals, even greater things began to happen. Falling in love with her faith even greater, she organized young Catholic professionals to help young professionals connect with one another and maintain their Catholic faith while pursuing demanding careers. We all know these days how hard that is to keep your Catholic faith in these demanding careers in this society, so what a blessing. Young Catholics in the working world these days seem to have little peer support and face personal challenges in maintaining a relevant, vibrant Catholic base in their everyday work lives. With promising high-powered career ahead of her, Jennifer Baugh hears the call, steps out in a leap of faith to leave it all as she follows the voice she hears in her heart. Here to bring you her inspiring story of faith and evangelization in the modern workplace, founder and national executive director of Young Catholic Professionals, one of the nation's fastest growing Catholic organizations with chapters in cities across the country, Miss Jennifer Baugh.
Thank you all. Good morning. It's such a blessing to be with you all. I'm really very grateful for this kind invitation. Your mission of Catholics at Work is very dear to my heart, and it's just been so great to get to know some of you already this morning and your leadership team. And Diana, what a dynamic and wonderful president you are. And I also want to thank Tom so much for all your support over the years with Young Catholic Professionals. So it really is such a joy to be here. So my presentation today will talk a little bit about the last several popes and their specific hope for young people. Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the trends in our church, focusing on the millennial generation. And then we'll talk about some of the challenges that young people are facing today, and then how our ministry, Young Catholic Professionals, is a great model to meet some of those challenges. So I ask you as I walk towards the front, why is it that the last popes have specifically highlighted young people? Well, it's because we are a beacon of hope for the church. We have the potential to inject contagious energy into our workplaces, into our parishes, into our communities. And so the popes realize that. In fact, Blessed Pope Paul VI, for the closing ceremony of Vatican II, his closing remark, the very, very last thing he said to end Vatican II, was addressed to youth. He said, "It is you, young men and women, who are to receive the torch from the hands of your elders and to live in a world at the period of the most gigantic transformations ever realized in history. Build with enthusiasm a better world than we have today." Then we go to our beloved St. John Paul II. We know how much he loved youth. He started World Youth Day. And he actually said at his installation ceremony in 1978, he said to youth, "You are the future of the world. You are the hope of the church. You are my hope." And then most recently, our Pope Emeritus Benedict. This quote is very dear to my heart because this is actually the quote that inspired the Young Catholic Professionals ministry. So he said, "No one can ignore the genuine difficulties which the church encounters at the present moment. Yet in faith, we can take heart from the promise offered by a new generation of Catholics, whose experience and convictions will have a decisive role in renewing the church's presence and witness in American society." Decisive. I love that he has hope that we will be instrumental, young people, in renewing the church's presence. And then our Pope Francis, he said at the most recent World Youth Day, he said to youth, "I ask you to be revolutionaries, to swim against the tide. Yes, I'm asking you to rebel against this culture. I expect a mess. I want a mess in the diocese. I want people to go out. I want the church to go out into the streets." So when I think of streets, I also think of the public square. I think of our workplaces. The Pope wants us to bring our faith confidently into our workplaces and in every moment of our lives. So for us to respond to these very, very hopeful messages, these great challenges, we have to take stock of where we currently are. We have to know where we're at in order to know where we're hoping to go. And where we're at in our society in terms of our Catholic faith in the US, there's a lot of room for improvement. I wanted to share with you all some of the recent trends in our church. According to an extensive study by the Pew Institute, American Catholics are aging. The average age of Catholics in the US is 49 years old, and that's 4 years older than it was in 2007. And the other thing is that non-Catholics, so Christians or other denominations, are significantly younger than we are. And then those who are not affiliated with any religion are actually, the average age is 36 years old. So you can see we're the oldest compared to the others. The Catholic share of the US population is declining, while the share of those who are unaffiliated is increasing. And the study has found that this is consistent across all geographies, all ages, that our share is declining. But he said, or the research says, that it's most pronounced among the millennials. And then lastly, millennials are found to be the least likely to attend Mass. So the study said that less than 17% of young adults in their 20s and 30s attend Mass on a weekly basis. So that's pretty staggering to think considering that in our 20s and 30s, that's when we're making these major life decisions, and we're not doing it with the support of our church to give us guidance. So what's going on with these millennials, these young workers? Well, we have identified 3 major challenges that young people face today. Number 1 is a lack of Catholic identity. Number 2 is a limited sense of community or belonging. And then number 3 is a lack of purpose, a lack of a sense of God's plan, a general apathy. So I'd love to go into these with you. So number 1, lack of Catholic identity. Another study showed that 7 out of 10 young adults who grew up active in the faith will no longer be practicing by the time they're 28 years old. And I can confirm from my experience with YCP, Young Catholic Professionals, that so many young adults who call themselves Catholic don't really know what they believe, and they don't have the confidence to live their faith publicly. I wanted to share with you all a quote, a testimonial from a young neurosurgeon who before YCP was completely detached from his faith, and who now has made a complete 180 and has found his identity in his faith. He says, "In the past, I let my colleagues ridicule Catholic families for their healthcare decisions. I'm on a different track now. Everyone in the office knows I'm Catholic and that I come late some mornings because I'm at Mass. Most importantly, I've been using my faith very prominently in my end-of-life conferences, and I have found such a deeper connection with patients and their families when I tell them about my personal belief in God and the promise of eternal life." So that sounds like someone who now has embraced his Catholic identity and is proud to live it in every moment.